Disasters cannot be totally prevented, but their impact can be reduced. Prepare and prevent. A production of the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, DMCA, aims to educate and empower residents on Montserrat to be prepared to respond to emergencies and disasters. Prepare and Prevent aired every Tuesday, 5:15 p.m. on ZGB Radio. Also provides relevant and timely messages about what you can do to protect yourself and your family before, during and after natural and man-made events.
We understand that you're anxious, you're worried about whatever you're leaving behind, but your life is more important.
Staying in a hurricane shelter during the COVID-19 era is the focus of today's program. It's the first time in Montserrat's history that hurricane season planning will take into account social distancing. This is very uncharted territory, but the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, DMCA, is taking the necessary steps should Montserrat be impacted by a storm or hurricane, combined with the complications of COVID-19. Can you imagine the challenges of trying to run hurricane shelters with physical distancing requirements? To this end, the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, hosted a 2-day COVID-19 specific training for shelter managers and support staff at the DMCA conference room in Sweeney's recently. The workshops will continue this week at the Royal Montserrat Police Service, RMPS, in Braids. Shelter managers and support staff were trained to provide wellness and temperature checks to everyone entering the hurricane shelters, the effective use of PPEs, personal protective equipment, and how to set up an isolation area for occupants who are showing signs of illness until the arrival of health staff if Montserrat is impacted by a storm or hurricane. Shelter managers and support staff will also have to provide personal protective equipment for everyone staying in a hurricane shelter. The workshop brought together district disaster chairpersons, shelter managers, officers from the Royal Montserrat Police Service, RMPS, and the Royal Montserrat Defence Force, as well as Red Cross first aiders. Hello and welcome again to the program Prepare and Prevent, a production of the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, DMCA. I'm your host, Shirley Nkwili. In today's edition of the program, we'll bring to you feedback from the facilitators of the 2-day COVID-19 specific training for shelter managers and support staff. They are nurse educator within the Ministry of Health, Naomi Foster, and nurse Sean Holder at the Glendon Hospital. I will begin with Nurse Foster. First off, I had the opportunity to participate in the workshop sessions over the past 2 days, and I was really enlightened by the sessions as it relates to the challenges posed by COVID-19 in a hurricane shelter. What advice do you have for individuals who may have to evacuate to shelters and are still quite concerned in light of the COVID-19 pandemic?
First of all, we understand that you're anxious, you're worried about whatever you're leaving behind, but your life is more important. You need to cooperate with the shelter managers, the other support staff. Follow instructions. It's not going to be easy. We all resist change. But for our own safety, from the hurricane, from the storm, and from COVID, we need to follow instructions. If we're not clear about something, ask for an explanation and work with the shelter managers, with DMCA, and all the relevant authorities.
Now we have come to the end of the 2-day training workshop. What was the main thrust or the purpose of the workshop?
We are aware that we're in a situation with a COVID pandemic, although Montserrat do not have any active cases. And then the second issue is the hurricane season. And as was predicted, it's going to be active. So we are preparing people who may require to use the shelter, that they've been in shelters before. It's not a normal time in the shelter anymore because we have to be thinking of measures to prevent the spread of COVID. It's going to be in the shelter and still maintaining your social distance, wearing personal protective equipment, and it's going to be difficult for people because all of us resist change.
What were some of the topics covered to ensure participants understood the seriousness of COVID-19 and staying in a hurricane shelter on Montserrat?
We looked at the challenges that the shelter managers and support staff faced previously, pre-COVID, before COVID. What are the challenges they face? And the anticipated challenges for this year with COVID around. And during that discussion, a lot of issues came up, a lot of things that we need to now reconsider, not only DMCA, but the Ministry of Health, to ensure that things go smoothly and we do not have any transmission of COVID or any other infectious disease in the shelter. As well as we use the opportunity to teach about the protective equipment, the personal protective equipment that is required to be used in the shelter to prevent the spread of COVID or any other infectious conditions. And we did a practical session where the shelter managers and support staff learn how to use the thermometer to check the temperature, be familiar with the form that will be used in the shelter, and what they need to do if there's somebody they suspect or have any medical condition, what do they do?
The importance of using proper cleaning supplies to sanitize buildings such as hurricane shelters was discussed. Can you elaborate some more on this for our listeners?
We know that one of the ways of controlling infection, whether COVID or any other infection, is by cleaning. And the chemicals that we use must be at least 99.9% be able to destroy, to kill germs. We cannot be using the sweet-smelling fragrance because it's not going to kill the germs. So we need to be aware, yes, we wash our hands, we sanitize, we wear masks, but the cleaning of the areas, the surfaces, is very important to prevent the spread of COVID.
Okay. You spoke about some of the disinfectants that individuals should avoid, such as Mistolin and Fabuloso. Can you elaborate some more for our listeners why individuals should avoid using Mistolin and Fabuloso when sanitizing their house to prevent the spread of germs? Because that was quite an interesting discussion.
Well, based on studies, research, Clorox, for some, the Lysol, they can kill germs. Pine Sol to some extent, the original one, because now they have different ones, the original is recommended. The Sunny wipes, the Clorox wipes, all these, they help in killing, not 100%, 99.9%. This is what we're going for. You use the Clorox and the others first, and then you use the Mistolin, Fabuloso, and the other perfumes after. It's just like you bathing, you use soap to kill the germs, the dirt, whatever on your skin, then you use your perfume. That is how Fabuloso and Mistolin should be used. It's after. It's a fragrance to have the area smelling good, but it's not going to kill the germs.
Any further advice for shelter managers and support staff in the event Montserrat should be impacted by a storm or hurricane and hurricane shelters are activated?
We are hoping that the training will sensitize them and they will see the importance of doing what they're supposed to do and be of an example. For example, a shelter manager is not wearing his mask or her mask and is telling the people that they must wear masks. We have to follow the instruction. It's for all of us safety, and we want to protect ourselves and the others around us.
I am speaking to a nurse educator within the Ministry of Health, Naomi Foster. Your final comments to our listeners at this time.
Well, we hope and pray that the hurricanes do not show up in our area. We cannot deal with hurricane and COVID. Lord help us.
Nurse educator within the Ministry of Health, Naomi Foster. I'm now speaking to Nurse Sean Holder at the Glendon Hospital, who facilitated a session on the use of PPEs, personal protective equipment, how important it is for shelter managers and support staff to be trained on the effective use of PPEs.
Yes, it is important for them to understand the importance of using PPE, because the use of PPE would protect the person who is wearing the PPE, it would protect other people around, and it would also reduce the spread of infection. So it is very important for persons to understand the importance of using PPE. The PPEs that would be used in the shelter, the most common ones would be, for example, your glove, mask, especially the mask, and maybe apron or gowns. Your PPE would be chosen based on the activity or what is necessary for you to do for a person. And there's no point using all the PPE because they're available. You use them appropriately. So educating them in the proper use of PPE, how to put it on or don it, and how to take it off or doff it is very important, because I can put on my PPE the correct way, and in taking it off, if I do it incorrectly, then I would be defeating the whole purpose, because I can spread infection that way.
The practical sessions were quite enlightening and a real eye-opener, especially on how to properly wear personal protective equipment, such as masks.
Okay, well, I understand that it would be mandatory for the persons entering the shelter to use a mask. So with the practical session that we had and the shelter managers knowing how to properly apply and remove a mask, then they would be able to show it to the persons who would be there. And they would be able to also emphasize the reason why they should be using a mask, because we need to remember that this year we're not only dealing with our hurricane situation, but then with COVID-19. And COVID-19 being a respiratory infection affecting the respiratory tract, then a mask is necessary. Not the N95 mask, but an ordinary surgical mask can be appropriate for ordinary persons in the shelter.
Okay. How long should a person wear a mask for?
A mask can be used for several hours, but it can also be changed in between that time if it is soil, if it is wet. And when I say soil, if it is visibly soil, you can see dirt on it.
Nurse Holder, something I observed locally, there are some people who wear gloves all the time, and they would have on the same gloves for several hours. They will use that same gloves to handle money, pack groceries in bags, deal with different customers, but they never change their gloves, sanitize it, or even wash their hands. You can actually see the dirt on the gloves. What advice you have for such persons to continue to wear gloves, because this particular issue was highlighted in the workshop sessions?
If you're going to be using a pair of gloves, then you would need to change your glove after attending to each person. For example, if it's money I'm dealing with, after attending to each person, I need to change my glove. I need to sanitize my hand, because I would be transmitting infection from one person to the other if I use the same glove dealing with several persons.
So basically you are saying that the recommended best practices are for individuals to sanitize and wash their hands often than to wear gloves.
Very well. People should sanitize their hands more often or wash their hands. We would prefer hand washing, but we know that it's not practically possible for people to wash their hands, in every situation. So if you cannot wash your hands, then sanitize your hands.
Can you explain the hand washing techniques for our listeners? I listened to you saying to the participants that you would wash your hands for the duration it takes an individual to sing the happy birthday song twice. And I never knew that. I wasn't even aware of that. And I saw you did a demonstration of how to wash your hands properly to kill germs. And I was really impressed, for want of a better word. Can you elaborate some more, explain to our listeners?
Okay, the principle behind hand washing. If you're washing your hands now, our hands, we have the palm of our hands, we have the back of our hands, we have between our finger spaces, we have our fingertips, we have around our thumb and around our wrist. When we're washing our hands, we concentrate on all those areas. We just do not wash the palm of the hand and then just the back of the hand. It's the palm of the hand and all the spaces between the fingernails, etc., so that we would be concentrating on all those areas, because germs would linger in creases in our hands. So we need to focus on all those areas, and we need to wash our hands for about 20 seconds. As they would say, it's like singing the happy birthday song twice, and by singing the happy birthday twice, that's just about 20 seconds. It's good length of rotation.
As I mentioned before, I was really blown away by the practical sessions, particularly the proper order in which personal protective equipment, PPEs, such as the apron or gown, the surgical mask, face mask, and gloves should be donned and removed. You refer to it as the sequence of donning and doffing PPEs. Quite interesting. For persons or individuals like myself who may be still uncertain or not aware of this method, can you explain to our listeners some more?
Okay, for example, in the use of PPE, basic 3, glove, apron, mask. There is an order in applying. First, you're going to put on your apron because you're protecting yourself. Then you're going to put on your mask because you're dealing with a respiratory infection. You put on your mask. And the last thing you do would be to put on your glove. Now, that would be in the order of donning or putting on. If we are taking it off, the consideration is that your gloves would always be the dirtiest thing. So you would remove your gloves first, you'll sanitize or wash your hands, then you would remove your apron, considering that the front of the apron is always most dirty. Loosen the strap at the back, then you would fold down forward in a forward rotation, touching the inside of the gown or apron and not the outer portion because that's dirty, and then you'll discard. You would sanitize your hand again and then remove the mask. If you finish your procedure, you remove that mask and of course do your hand washing again, and you can apply another mask if you need to be using a mask continuously.
How do you properly remove a face mask or surgical mask or whatever mask that individuals might be wearing?
Okay, in removing the mask is based on the type of mask. If it's the one with the string behind the ears, you'll slip your finger at the bottom of your earlobe and then you release the string and lean your head slightly forward, drop the mask in the bin. If it's the mask with the string, with 2 strings, one on top, one at the bottom, you would first remove the bottom string and then loosen the bottom string and then loosen the top. If you loose the top before, the mask will fall forward on you and that can cause contamination. So you wouldn't want the mask to be falling forward, so you remove the back. The order is removal of the back string and then the top, the one at the crown of the head.
I'm speaking to Nurse Sean Holder at the Glendon Hospital. Your final comments to our listeners at this time. You facilitated a session on the effective use of PPEs.
For this hurricane season, I do hope that we all stay safe. Let's be our brothers and sisters' keeper. Let's look out for each other and let's do the right thing. We know that we should be maintaining social distance, we should be washing our hands, we should be taking all the precautions. Let's continue to do that. We have been doing well, and I think that it's a pat on our shoulder, and we need to continue in that trend. Let's continue to do well and keep COVID at bay.
Nurse Sean Holder at the Glendon Hospital.
De que su hogar esté en buenas condiciones. Revise su techo, canelones, ventanas, puerta, persiana para huracanes y las condiciones de su casa para resolver cualquier problema antes de una tormenta. Este mensaje ha llegado a ti de parte del Departamento de Coordinación de Desastre de Montserrat.
Now that the hurricane season is here, being prepared and having a plan is paramount. If you have any questions or comments, please contact the DMCA via email dmca@gov.ms or call us on telephone numbers 491-7166 or 491-3076. We'll be happy to address any concerns you may have. The Disaster Management Coordination Agency, DMCA, is the national body responsible for emergency disaster management, which involves prevention, mitigation, planning, preparedness, response, coordination, and recovery. The DMCA aims to provide residents, visitors, and the vulnerable within our community with precise, timely, and transparent information before, during, and after hazard impact, an emergency, or disaster. We also offer advice, tips, and reminders on how to prepare for, respond to, and recover from a hazard, impact, an emergency, or disaster. Follow us on Twitter, DMCA_Montserrat, Facebook, Montserrat Disaster Management Coordination Agency, YouTube, Montserrat Disaster Coordination Agency, DMCA, and our website, www.dmca.gov.ms. Tune in next time for another informative and useful Prepare and Prevent program. I am Shirley Nkwili. Be ready and stay ready. It only takes one. And thank you for listening.
Prepare and Prevent, a production of the Disaster Management Coordination Agency, DMCA. Be aware, get ready, stay prepared.